Today we celebrate a really important day, my baptism. Today we celebrate not just my baptism, but the saint we celebrate today is Saint Polycarp, who for me personally is a great example of someone who remains steadfast through crazy times and challenges and changes in life. Saint Polycarp was one of the first generation of followers of Jesus, having heard the message of Jesus directly from the apostles. He was a disciple of John the Evangelist, St. John, that great apostle. And so you can imagine Polycarp sitting at the feet of John and listening to all he had to say. How amazing that would have been. And so he also helped lead the church during a time after the passing away of the apostles and this new generation of the church. And as you can imagine, as those first followers of Jesus passed on to heaven and to glory, there were all sorts of different heresies and false teachings that popped up. So what do you do with that? How do you reconcile the faith with these new, difficult, and false teachings? Well, Polycarp was one of the leaders to help the church through that amazing time of challenge and transition. He was so well respected by his followers that he would receive lots of tributes. Well, one day there was people being persecuted in the arena, Christians being persecuted, and the crowd started yelling, said, "Away with these atheists." They saw the Christians, Catholics, as atheists because they didn't follow the many gods that the Roman Empire believed in. And so they asked for the leader. They started cheering that they wanted Polycarp, who was the bishop of Smyrna in Turkey. So Polycarp was brought in and asked to denounce, to say that away with these atheists, referring to the Christians. Instead, he turned to the crowd and said, "Away with these atheists." You can imagine they didn't really like that. As he was being prepared to die by being burnt alive, they said, "Do you renounce my faith?" He said, "How can I turn away from the God who has remained faithful to me my 86 years of life?" A great example of someone who remains steadfast in faith. And according to eyewitnesses, when the place where he was lit afire, there was like a halo around him, and he couldn't be burned. So they eventually stabbed him, and he died there a martyr's death. Now, why do we tell these gruesome stories? Why do we hold on to these gruesome stories of martyrdom? Well, because they give us an example of how to remain steadfast in difficult times, in times of change, in times of persecution. They give us an example and a witness of someone who remains steadfast no matter what. So today, maybe we be inspired by the example of St. Polycarp, who remained steadfast his whole life. And may we be just as steadfast in our whole lives too.